consumerism and the eventual contrast and whether it's an oxymoron or not, and how eventually those two concepts, sustainability and consumption in general, can be aligned among each other. The structure of this panel will be slightly different from the one before. I will introduce the speaker one by one, just preceding their presentation. Each of them has slides, most of them have slides. So I will immediately start presenting the first speaker, the first panelist, who is Claudio Boër. He's a research fellow at the International Academy for Production Engineering. He's also adjunct professor at SUPSI Department of Innovative Technologies, and he's a distinguished professor in Huazhong University of Science and Technology and visiting professor in other Chinese universities. He is also advisor for the Swiss governmental agencies, especially InnoSwiss, and consul in the Swiss Consulate General in Shanghai. He's an expert of manufacturing engineering and computer integration, new business models for saving energy, reducing waste, and he will talk about mass customization today. So please welcome Claudio Boër.
So, good afternoon. Good for your patience to wait. Anyway, but he doesn't come there. He come here, but not there. Okay. So, we have to answer this question, if consumerism is sustainable or not. And my answer, that consumerism is sustainable if it does not produce waste. My talk, essentially, it is how to reduce waste in everything we do. Lately, particularly in energy, I was working. But because it is always so complex to talk about this project, I started to present, and I have my shopping bag here, with the shoes. Okay? You all have a pair of shoes, right? So I will pass around this pair of shoes because you will look, don't worry, they are clean. But if somebody wants, can come and pick it up. Why? Because in these shoes, they were made in some kind of special way compared to what is the present state of the art. So, as they said, I am a professor, former vice president of SUPSI. I am already retired from some times. But I am also a common consumer and citizen, so I have this kind of intention to try to help the society. These are shoes, and we have to try to think how many pair of shoes do you buy each year? If I ask the question to the audience, how many, I start with my panelists, how many pair of shoes do you buy? 10. 10? Per year? Per year. 2. 2. Mm-hmm. 2. Okay.
I think my husband bought 12 this year. One per month.
Okay. I don't ask to anybody, otherwise we will not finish. But anyway, there are many, and we have many shoes in our closet. It is estimated that around 300 million pair of shoes are thrown away each year, like you see here. Anyway, where are the shoes made? Because we have to make a difference between sale and manufacture of shoes. Again, some more questions. How many shoes are made each year in the world? Yeah, yeah, please. Too many is not a number. I need a number.
1 billion.
Huh?
1 billion.
1 billion. Any other guess? What? I didn't hear, but doesn't matter. 2 billion. Okay, let's say we are already almost 8 billion people in this earth. Let's say that 2 billion go without shoes. There are still 6 billion of people that buy shoes every year, okay? So this buy, how many shoes are purchased each year? Not produce, because produce, they are around 18 to 20 billion pair of shoes. But how many of these are sold each year? Well, in the footwear section, the unsold number of shoes is around 20%. It's normal. Don't say, oh, no, it's normal. If you take the clothes, it's even more. It's 40%. And where they go? Well, if they are done relatively well, then they can be recycled, like I think somebody already talked about circular economy and so on. But the 20% of shoes that are recycled and nobody bought it, nobody used it, the energy is gone. You cannot recycle the energy. So that, for me and other people, is a real waste. Now, if you know this quite well, but if you take the energy consumption in the world, is more or less 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3 between transportation, building, production. So 1/3 of the energy is consumed by industrial production. And you see here a central power station. What do you think it is made, or what kind of energy is produced there? Or what kind of, let's say, fuel it uses in order to produce energy?
Nuclear.
Yes, nuclear, right. It's the largest nuclear plant until the one in Finland started a few days ago, okay? And is in the United States. This produces something like more than 1,000 megawatt, but I will not go too much in this kind of number because I know that it's not easy to grasp, okay? But there is essential paradigm that is used in industrial production today, and that is mass production. And mass production was practically invented more than 100 years ago by Ford when he started to produce the Model T. I think this is a classical lecture that is given in most of economy courses. Now, mass production is a very efficient way to make things, and you can reduce the cost very much, but it's not very efficient from an energy point of view. Yeah, this is aeolic. So energy, we have to try to understand the 20% of unsold shoes, how much energy is used or is consumed. And if you take this, you see here the 16, 18 billion of shoes, simple calculation, if you know how much energy is required, electric or whatever, to make a pair of shoes, I hope I don't fall down, then you reach 54 million megawatt hours. Does make sense to you? What is a 54 million megawatt hour? There are any engineer here? That's why you say yes. But the common people don't really understand what does it mean 54 million megawatt hour. Well, if you go back to this, okay, this can power 1,000 megawatt. So in 1 year, multiply the power by the time, then you have 9 million megawatt hour produced by this central station. So it means that for the 20% of unsold shoes every year, we use 6 larger power plants for nothing. Okay? Now, just to dimension here in Ticino, the Verzasca Dam, that is one of the largest, is 105 megawatt power. So it's 1/10 of this big atomic energy plant. I calculated also how much of the energy is required for the 20% of shoes that are unsold in Ticino, but I will spare you. So how can we avoid this waste of resources and energy? Well, the mass production paradigm tends to produce more product than are really needed, because the products are market-oriented, but in an approximate way. So mass production knows the market trend, approximately. It knows the volume of the market, approximately. And it knows the time for market, approximately. So the whole problem is related to approximately. That's why the shoe industry is producing shoes that are unsold, because they want anyway to sell something. So the approximately is what it produces this waste. What is the alternative? Well, let's go back first to a shop. This is a typical shoe shop. All the shoes are on the shelf with some size. Others are in the back, okay? And when I go to one of these shops, for example, to buy my shoes, then I always ask number 41 and number 42. And then I put the left 41 and the right 42. And I say to the people, I buy these two. What is the reaction? What I do with the other two? So they don't satisfy the client, because my feet are a little bit different left and right. I'm not, everybody has some difference. So this is the traditional mass production shoe store. Can we do something else? Well, you as consumer like me, we are at the end of the whole consumer chain, production chain. We cannot do anything about, because the shoes are already there, already made. Okay? So can we change that in such a way that you as a consumer are pushed back to the beginning of a life cycle of a product? Well, if we can do that, then we solve the problem of approximately, because the product that we want will be produced only when we have already chosen. And we have already given the indication what we want. In 10 years ago, we published this book that talk about what you see here. I like to bring also real things, not only virtual, okay? There is a kind of Bible of mass customization and sustainability. And I did this work together with my collaborator 10 years ago. So this is the old or present way to shopping. How will be the shoe store of mass customization? Well, it will be like this one that you probably don't see very well, but you see that there are very few shoes there. And there is only the left or right, so that the client cannot try to, and there is only one size, by the way. So what happened? Well, there are some three-dimensional scanner in which you put your feet left and right, and pictures are taken in such a way that also from below, the computer can realize a three-dimensional picture of your feet. And after that, you said, yes, but how can I see the shoes that I buy? Well, we developed some technology in which there is a camera there that take your feet with some, you see, these are just sneakers, very simple kind of shoes. But on the screen, you can see the shoes that you chose. And you can also move around and see how they fit with your pants, with your skirt, and so on. And the shops is only there. At that moment, of course, all the data are sent to the factory, and the answer come back very quickly, and he said, your shoes will be made in 1 week, 10 days. Today we call it that metaverse, but I don't think we should use it anymore because. So, this is what I show around a pair of shoes. They are made in an industrial way, but for me. You see my name there. And it can be done for each one of you if these things start to go on. So we need a paradigm shift, we call it, from mass production to mass customization, and produce only what is needed, when you need it, and according to customer specification. Customer specification can be, of course, the volume, the size, the picture of your feet, but also the style and what you like to have on the shoes. And not last, what is sustainable. Consumerism is sustainable if it does not produce waste. That is at least my answer, because when we calculated and we reached this 6 power station producing something that nobody buy, for me was quite a shock. I hope it will be also for you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Carlo, for the interesting presentation. I will now move to the second speaker. So the second panelist today is Coty Jeronimus. She's Senior Sustainability Strategist of Fashion and Sporting Goods at Conte, an environmental sustainability consultancy. She was also Product Category Manager for Quicksilver in the North Face. She's also an independent consultant advising luxury and lifestyle brands, reducing their footprint and supporting them with creative solutions to sustainability challenges. She collaborated with the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation. She has more than 25 years of experience in the textile industry and sustainability supply chain management in general. She's also expert of sourcing, buying, and product management. So please welcome Coty Jeronimus with us.
So, yeah, no, I don't have a presentation. So thank you very much for introducing me, and thank you, Claudio, for your great presentation, especially about waste. So I wanted to show or to speak about like the brand perspective and the consumer perspective, because as a senior strategist for Quantis in the fashion and sporting goods sector, I support my clients, as what was said, to reduce not only their carbon footprint but also biodiversity and water footprint. in order to become net zero in 2050, because that is the goal we all need to meet now, and also to operate within the planetary boundaries. Of course, these clients, these brands, they all foresee growth. Degrowth is very difficult. So today, for these clients, growth is, they aim to grow, and they also need to reduce their impact. They need to go to net zero in 2050. Luckily, upcoming regulations and reporting schemes, they help a lot to oblige these brands to stay on track in their reduction journey. And also a big part of this work is circular economy, and also consumer protection, and and measuring all this. So luckily the EU, they plan to launch this sustainability label for clothing, which is using the PEF methodology. PEF methodology is called the Product Environmental Footprint, and it's based on an LCA methodology. However, there's still an ongoing discussion about what should be, let's say, what should be in it. There are defined indicators already, but there is still a discussion about renewable, durability, which is not yet included, and also the full impact of fossil fuels compared to biodiversity and water, for example, the impact on water of these products. However, and that is very important, is that the EU, in their regulations and in their vision for the textile industry, they include the following key actions. And that is also linked to the presentation of Claudio. Like, products need to be durable and recyclable. They need to be made of recycled fibers. They need to be free of hazardous substances, and they need to be produced in an environmental friendly way while respecting social rights. And something which is very interesting also is that that fast fashion should be out of fashion. It needs to be, product needs to be reused and repaired, services need to be available. And textiles should be collected at the end of their lifetime and their incineration and landfill reduced to a minimum. There are already countries around who already implement that and put the responsibility to the brands of collecting all these items. So all these things, brands today, they need to take care of that, besides also measuring their value chain, trying to reduce it, meaning they need to be much more traceable, much more transparent, and that's not easy because big brands, mainly they know only their, what we say, tier one supplier, which is their manufacturing, and they have no clue where their leather, where their cotton, where it comes from, and what is the impact of that. And we're not at all talking about waste here, it's just really the supply chain and just the production part. So yes, of course, brands, they need to decouple growth for volume. They need to change their business model. They need to make their supply chain fully transparent and traceable. And yeah, they need to develop new business model. So for example, and also that, I think it's with the shoes you showed, it is a kind of different way of sales with the price growth. Because of course we cannot continue to produce all this mass on a very cheap prices and also lose all this electricity and then have all this waste. There's also another business model which is resale or a subscription model based on a rental platform, and then of course reduce the dead stock or sales on pre-order. But how does this link to the customer? So recently I read a very interesting report written by the WWF and a company which is called Bain & Company, and they interviewed almost 6,000 fashion consumers in China, France, Germany, Japan, the US and the UK, and they defined 5 consumer profiles. 1, sustainability champions. idealists, also very interested in sustainability, good citizens, people who want to do good and want to aim to buy something sustainable, opportunity shoppers, and indifferent. The outcome of these 6,000 fashion consumers is that indifferent is 35% of the consumer. Another outcome is that the first three, which is almost 43%, like sustainability champions, idealists, good citizens, are consumers who had an undergrad or graduate study and a very, let's say, medium to high level income. And that is also something to take in consideration. The study found also out that there is a discrepancy between fashion consumer willingness to act sustainability and that their actual behavior, and there is an attitude behavior gap, which is very large, why they're going to buy. So they found out that a customer, they prefer to give something away to an NGO or to recycle it than to check on what a brand is doing good. It takes too much time, also for sustainability champions. So quality, that said, quality and durability are the leading purchasing factors for global fashion consumers. And luckily, this is linked to sustainability. However, there is a lot of education needed and also an education for this, let's say, opportunity shoppers and indifferent shoppers to let them understand what is behind it and also that maybe a cheap price has a very high impact on our climate. And apparently, one of the outcomes is that of this 1/3 of indifferent consumers, a quart would be able or would be happy to buy for a premium price sustainable fashion. So even if it's a very small amount, I would say there is still hope. But yeah, there's a lot of work to do. So for me, there's no answer yet to your question. Like, if we are consumerism is sustainable, it is a kind of work on one side, regulations to drive a change on a governmental level. Brands, because they need to report, they are also obliged to make a change because consumers are more and more reading, even if they are indifferent. And then through all these regulations and new business model, hopefully also the opportunity shoppers and the indifferent shoppers, they will change. Thank you.
Thank you, Coty, for your inspiring talk. So we go on with the third panelist. She's called Renata Moshkovich. She's the founder of Code Verde, a startup seeking to educate consumers on the SDG performance of consumer goods. She's also founder of Digital Pivot, which is an online marketing agency focused on organic reach, online visibility, brand awareness, and conversion rate optimization for small and medium enterprises. She is an expert of digital marketing and market research, and she's developing a platform indeed for educating consumers about how products rate vis-a-vis the SDGs. So please welcome Renata Moshkovich.
Hi, I just want to, how do I change? Okay. So, hi, as I was presented, I'm a digital marketing specialist. I'm in digital marketing for the last 14 years. And it's true that I'm still officially working in digital pivot, but actually since I moved to Switzerland, it's kind of in my past now, and now I'm more focused on sustainability. If I would like to share my personal experience from working with companies for so many years, and if there is one thing I learned from this experience is companies are fighting to get your attention. They are doing everything they can to get as much reach as they can, to talk to you, to make sure that you know their brand, that you recognize the brand, and they spend fortune on this. But the actual result, the reason they are doing it is because you are eventually the consumers. You are the people with money that are going to the shop and buying the things. And if you're gonna do it, they're gonna make more revenues, meaning they're more successful, and this is the ultimate goal of every company in the world, I guess. Now, if you are those with the money, it means that you can impact the world from your side. Even if we are not in the government, even if we are not the decision makers, we are actually those that are spending the money. And if we will focus on our goals, we will be able to change it. Let me explain what I mean. I kind of messed up the slides. Now all the companies are investing a lot in sustainability. This is something that we all know. This is why we are here. Companies started to change their business practices, and they are doing it very fast and in a great way. It takes a lot to change the whole process in the company, to change so much in the company. And they are doing it in the level of how they produce the products and within the company itself. And if we are talking about the big brands, they are doing an amazing job on also reporting this information, what they did, to the government and to their investors. They kind of put us aside, the customers, the people that actually paid the money to buy those products. They spent, Coca-Cola, one of the brands that we all know, they sent 86 pages report about what they did in the last year. How many read it? No one. But they did an effort, and they did a lot in the last years. So something is lost in the process of reporting it to us, the final customers. And here we have a lot of room to improvement. And I asked my husband to buy a detergent for the laundry. This is a real photo from Migros. This is not a Shutterstock photo. He sent me this photo and said, which one? And this is the exact issue. There is so many products that are basically more or less doing the exact same thing. How do I know which one is the most sustainable? How do I choose? I stand in this aisle of infinitive amount of products for every type of thing that I want to buy. How do I decide which one is more sustainable? And let's put it up a notch, which one is more aligned with my values? All the brands usually talk about the carbon footprint, they talk about the climate change, and of course this is really important topics. But what about the other SDG values? There is 17 goals. What about diversity and inclusiveness? What about gender equality? What if I care more about gender equality and preventing poverty? How do I know which one is doing it? How do I know which one pays fair salaries? How do I know which one is not discriminating women? This information is not really shown in any level. So yes, brands are trying to be more sustainable. They are also changed a lot and started to add labels, a lot of labels. And I don't know how many of you recognize those, but this is just a small amount of labels that exist out there. And this is one of I didn't want to put the name of the bottle that I bought, but it has 6 different labels. At the end of the day, I'm not sure if they still align with what I care about. How do I decide which one I should buy? And with all this information out there, what happens is that when you stand next to this aisle, you're gonna roll back and buy the one that maybe you heard about, maybe that has the nicest package. And if you are my husband, you're gonna buy the green one because he likes the color green. And this is a missed opportunity, because maybe the one right next to it answering my needs and actually invest more in things that I care about. And it was just, and this brand was so close to make this sale on something that I needed in any case. So how are we gonna choose the product eventually? I think the best way to shop is to ask the brands, is to ask them, send us the information. Because at the moment they are sending it, they are collecting these reports, they're investing a lot of money to create those reports. They just forget to send it to us. And this is how I came up with my idea for my company. And it's about creating an easier way for the brands to communicate what they're doing for me, what they're gonna, how they're, and based on this information, I will be able to choose the product. The way that it's supposed to work is very, very simple. I take the photo of the product, I get one page that summarizes everything that they did, and this way, it will be highlighted for me according to my profile, the things that I care about, if they invested it in or not, if they are working on it or not. And this way, I will be able to shop in a more responsible way, and I will be able to spend my money in the product that is aligned with my values, and I will be able to maybe also create an impact on the way that if enough people are buying certain products according to their values, it will make some companies align their values closer to what we care about. And the other feature that we're gonna have in this product is basically for us, the customers, again, take back the power to us and share with the company what we care about. We will have a way to send back a feedback to the company saying, I did not buy your product because you don't invest enough in diverse hiring. I did not buy your product because you are discriminating women. Or maybe I did buy a product because you are paying better salaries, because you are helping to prevent poverty. And in this way, we can actually make sure that our goals more align with what we are shopping. In this way, we can make sure that the money that we are spending gets to the brand that deserves it. So the conclusion is that every decision that you're making will affect the world. So this is it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Renata, for sharing your initiative with us. We go on with the last but not least speaker. She's called Marta Pellegrino. She's a senior sustainability specialist at VF Corporation, the North Face, after being a sustainability specialist at Oberall Group and a sustainability analyst at Deloitte. So as you may guess, she's an expert in sustainability. She has an educational background in environmental management, and she's also an expert in corporate communications, especially for mountains and sports clothing brands. Please welcome Marta.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Nice to meet you. I'll try and be brief. I know everyone's probably hungry and waiting to have aperitivo by this time. Thanks for the introduction, and thank you so much for all the great presentations. I think it's great because we have a really nice mix of different backgrounds and different messages that we got today. My personal message is coming from the company that I'm working for, which is the North Face, so coming from a brand that produces shoes, apparel, other things, and a brand that also has to communicate to the end consumer, as Renata was just saying. So I think it's quite interesting also to hear all of these different voices and how we're all ultimately trying to work in the same direction from different points of view. And ultimately, I would say that the common thread here, one of the common threads, is the consumer. So everything is evolving around the consumer, what the consumer is asking for, what the consumer is looking for, and what the consumer expects as well. And that's then translated through policy, through production, through whatever it is. But it's really the consumer. And I think I couldn't underline how important it is also from a brand perspective, the voice that the consumer really shares with us. And it is something that the brand listens to. Ultimately, of course, we need to sell products, so we need to listen to the consumer, but we also will stop selling products if we are selling products in the wrong way, and that doing it in a way that's maybe not aligned with what the consumers are expecting. So it's really important that we share, all of us consumers, our voices also with brands, and not only go and, fight in front of government buildings, that's also super important, but also, communicate to end consumers as well, to brands, as well. So I guess you all know the North Face. Our brand motto is never stop exploring, and that's always been the brand motto. And really that's something that we have never changed, and that I think we will hopefully never change as our key message. And really the way the brand was born by our founder that was out there in the mountains exploring Yosemite Park with his fellow, friend, Yvon Chouinard, which is then the founder of Patagonia. So really the two brands were born together in the spirit of exploration and just going out there and living nature for what it was. And that's always been at the heart of our brand. And just being able to equip explorers to get out there and explore nature. And I would say there's nothing that can bring you closer and that can show you the impacts of climate change than nature. And so we are, I would say, fortunate enough to have a consumer base, which is consumers that are spending time in nature and that are firsthand seeing the results of climate change and the impact of climate change. And that's giving us even more responsibility, I would say, acting in this market. So this is one of my favorite quotes, I would say, from Hap Klopp. He was the entrepreneur that bought and officially founded the North Face back in the 60s and really launched it to be the successful brand that it is today. And his main quote that he was always sharing with everyone, with employees and with consumers and just everyone that was interacting with the brand was, our mission is not to sell another sleeping bag or another jacket or another duffel bag. It's to change the world. And change the world through exploration. And exploration doesn't mean just going on Mount Everest. It means exploring the unknown. It means questioning ourselves about everything we do, about the choices we make, and the things that we say, buy, produce every day. And I think that's quite impactful as a quote, and we really try and live that within the brand and be able to get that message across to our consumers every day. So I just wanted to share a couple of examples of some historical product catalogs from the North Face. The first one, so back in the 70s when we had to share our product collection to our clients, our buyers, etc., that was all done, the digital world didn't exist back then, so it was all done on printed catalogs that were shared with them. And this is an example of one of the second product catalog, I believe, in the 1970s, 1974, I think. Where we had in the first page of the product catalog an article which was actually quite groundbreaking back in the day, which was really about the impacts of climate change and how, yes, we need to take care of our climate because we have to leave it in a better way than how we found it, or at least ensure that future generations can strive as best as possible. And I think so this was a really strong message to give out back in the days to our retailers and our consumers. This is another example of one where we were, again, in 1976, I think it was. In our product catalog, we were basically fighting against nuclear and coal production power plants and basically sharing our message as much as possible and with the voice that we can have as a brand to push for solar energy production and in general renewable energy. And then this one I find quite interesting. In 1975, we actually created our own award, which is called ICE 9 Award, and we basically gave this award to the organization that we thought was having the worst impact on the environment, and we gave that to the Nuclear Energy Agency back then, so it was kind of a bit of an ironic prize and award to give, but we really wanted to use the voice that we had as a brand to try and make an impact, and also take the voice of our consumers and translate that, since we know that maybe we have a more powerful voice than just one of our consumers, act as a platform to share those messages also to policymakers and etc. So just to close it off, I just wanted to share a campaign that we launched last year, which is called It's More Than a Jacket. I don't know if you guys have seen this around anywhere. I think this is really interesting, and it goes back to many of the points that my fellow panelists mentioned about, yes, we are a brand. We need to sell our products, of course. If not, we wouldn't exist as a brand. But what's behind that product? What's behind a simple jacket, or what looks like a simple jacket that we're selling to our consumer? And really giving and sharing those values of what is behind that jacket, trying to push consumers to keep it with themselves as much as possible, to go and explore it, to share those explorations with their friends, to try and push for the limits that they think are unknown to them. And also what's behind that jacket in terms of, how was it made? Where is it coming from? How can I use it? How can I repair it? How can I use it longer? And what happens to it at the end of the jacket's lifetime? So the campaign was really about sharing that, yes, we are selling you a product, but there's much more than the ultimate product that we're selling you. And I think this is something that as consumers, with whatever we buy, whether it's a sporting good from the North Face or whether it's the detergent in the supermarket, there's a story behind that product. And I think it was a quite powerful campaign, and I think it really says a lot about how we should be consuming as a population. So I'll just play this video. Let's see if the audio works. No, I don't know how to. Maybe like this.
It's more than a jacket. It's a challenge. A celebration. It's a culture. A passion. It's progression. Lessons learned. Records broken. And limits redefined. It's a calling. It's everywhere. It's forever. It's more than a jacket.
Okay, so whatever, I can keep this there. So just to close it off, I could stay here for hours just saying more about what we're doing within the brand to try and bring our sustainability agenda forward from many different points of view, whether it's pushing for more circular business models, reducing our packaging, working with suppliers across the whole world in our globalized supply chain to help them produce in more clean and energy efficient ways. There's a lot of different projects that are going on behind the scenes, behind a simple video like this, of course. And yeah, but I think ultimately at the end of the day, the responsibility is on all of us, on brands, on consumers, on policymakers. And the most important thing and the most, I think, powerful thing is talking to each other and not competing or fighting against each other, but together finding the ways forward. And that also means, and I think a very powerful example is the fact that we also work a lot with our competitor brands inside the outdoor industry, where I was 2 days ago at a conference with Patagonia, and we were talking the whole time about how we can try and change things together, all these types of things. So really, when it comes to sustainability, competition, war, all these things, they don't exist. It's about doing it together. If not, I think we won't be able to reach our ultimate goal. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Marta. So we still have some time for some questions. I prepared a couple of them, but I would rather open already the panel to you. So please, if there's any specific or general questions to the panel, just raise your hand and ask.
Thank you. No, I was saying very good question. It's a question that we're asking ourselves inside the brand on a daily basis. I think at the end of the day, it's a lot about the conversations that we have with our final customers, and in trying to communicate also, through marketing, through storytelling, really what the values of the North Face are, and try and get those on the streets of New York or wherever our jackets are being worn. This is a big dilemma that the whole outdoor industry is facing right now, because the outdoor has now become trendy on the streets. So there's kind of this risk, I would say, that the outdoor industry is now associated to the fashion industry, or there's some kind of, this line is now kind of it's a bit blurry. So I think at the end of the day, the core business around mountain exploration, it's still there, and it's still part of our business. It's something that we're not going to give up. We now have a little bit more of a, let's say, bilateral approach to the business, but we still are investing most of our time and product creation and design behind those technical products that can really equip our explorers to get out there on the mountains. We are sponsoring some of the best athletes out there in the world, and that's something that we want to continue doing, and we want to push more and more for, and try as best as possible to bring those values also out onto the street to the average consumer that's buying it also in more, let's say, less sporty style. I hope that kind of answered your question.
Any other question?
This isn't a question about North Face, but probably about all the outdoor companies, but I had a little North Face memory. I am obviously quite old, and when I was younger, it was a thing in Scotland. We had a North Face factory, and people would go and camp out overnight on the day that the North Face factory were selling their cheap stuff. There hasn't been a North Face factory in Scotland now for 10, 15 years, because I guess a lot of the production would be in China now. And I guess a lot of the production of many of these outdoor goods is in China now, and that was for many reasons. But we know that products that are made in China, we would have questions about the carbon footprint of the production in China as compared to Europe, where we've got more sustainable sources of our energy. Never mind the questions about worker welfare and worker rights. So I wondered, surely if you were a company who was caring about your carbon footprint and sustainability, would you not, is that discussion going on about why is everything shifted to China? I mean, I know some reasons, but I am certainly that's not my world. So that's my question. How can sustainability be squared with the fact that we're getting cheaper production in China at the cost of both the carbon footprint of the product given Chinese energy production and also the working standards in China as opposed to Europe?
Yeah, probably one of the most common questions we get as a brand. So I would say, this applies not only to the North Face, but to the general fashion and outdoor industry. There's several reasons why we have shifted our production. Well, first of all, just to clarify, we don't produce everything in China. We produce it around the whole world, also in China, but around the whole world, depending on the material that we're sourcing. So we tend to, let's say, as a very big producer and manufacturer of sporting goods. We have a big volume of products that are produced on a seasonal basis. And globally, in the supply chains have shifted in the past years. The know-how and the technical expertise for this type of manufacturing used to be in certain places, and now it's expanded into other places, and that's part of globalization. Right now, the workforce and the labor to be able to produce this much, and with that technical expertise, with that quality that we need, is actually globally all over the place. It's no longer in Italy only or in Scotland or wherever it was. And we have developed, we are part of one of the most digitalized continents. Our workforce and our know-how has developed into something else, and not, finding someone who can actually cut and sew a t-shirt in Europe is very difficult, especially at the scale that we need it, of course. So I think that's one of the reasons why globalization has happened. Globalization comes at a cost. It comes at a cost for the environment as well, and it comes at, there's a lot of risks that can pose also on human rights and everything that you mentioned completely. So what we do as the North Face as a brand is to try and ensure that through this globalization we can minimize the negative impact that can have. So we have super strict, these are things that we often don't talk about, so consumers wouldn't assume that it's happening, but we have super strict auditing that's happening at our suppliers every season that needs to be renewed. We go out there, we have teams in every single country where we produce that are closely monitoring the production. Our suppliers have to meet certain human rights, but also environmental standards in their production. If not, we don't use them. We have a very, very long list of hundreds of chemicals that cannot be put inside our products or the production process, and each supplier has to produce according to those. If not, the product's not going to end up in our shops. So we have a lot of different things that we're trying to do to, let's say, to minimize that risk to a bare minimum. An example is with one of our suppliers this couple of months ago, just before Christmas in Vietnam, we helped them install new energy efficient boilers, a solar rooftop panel, solar park on the rooftop of their factory to shift all their energy to renewable energy. So really on the ground projects that we're doing with them. At the end of the day, our impact, environmental impact in terms of greenhouse gas emissions as a brand comes more than 50% from our production. Our production is around the world. So we need to go out there around the world where our products are produced to reduce our impact at the end of the day. It's not about having energy efficient buildings here in Switzerland. That's not going to make an impact. That's not where we have our impact. So that's the focus of our sustainability work. Within, of course, the context of a big brand that's producing a lot of products globally. So of course, within that context.
Yeah, I wanted to build up on that because, of course, North Face or VF is not the only one. I work a lot with different brands that goes from luxury to lifestyle and also fast fashion. And as what I said, luckily with all the upcoming regulation, brands, they need to look into that. On the other side, also what you said, it's not only because of globalization, it's also that a lot of knowledge what we had years before is not existing anymore in Europe, and it all shifted to these developing countries, which is a shame. And then there's also another question maybe to ask, would a customer want to pay a pant 4 times more the price because we're going to produce it in Switzerland? And of course we will have probably a lower carbon impact, but is this that mix of price? And then again, we will not be able to scale up. It's in the way as it is possible in China or Vietnam or Bangladesh. But again, luckily there is a lot of more certifications are there, third party auditors companies are really trying to look more and more into their supply chain because, for example, big groups like VF, they need to report in 2024 they are on climate change, on biodiversity, on circularity, and then smaller SMEs, they need to start reporting in 2027. So this all helps a lot to get things right. And yeah, I think that's... then again, I would ask the question to the end consumer, and unluckily also going back to what I see. Also, I have 2 sons, and I try. We talk a lot at sustainability at home, but of course they buy at Zara. They don't have that much money to be able to buy Gucci or whatever, or a luxury brand, or even North Face every day. So it's Zara, and but then there's also Shein. So what is sustainable? That's also a question. And how are these brands assessing it? And then journalism will also help, and that's why these brands, they try to get it good, because there's more and more communication in the press. And then thinking about these fast fashion brands like Shein, who try to do who are putting a lot of non-qualitative stuff, which is not verified, which is not recyclable, which is not fitting to standards on the market. Indeed, that's not good, and that should be shown. And younger people, older people, they should know that, and they should go away from this kind of products and go more to these brands who are trying to have a positive impact.
Thank you, Coty. I guess we almost ran out of time. Claudio wanted to reply as well to this last intervention, and maybe we have some more time for 1 question, maximum 2 later.
Hello?
Yes.
Yes? Yes. Okay. No, just because we are not hungry. I take the opportunity of your question regarding why making in China and not doing some other places. And when I started to do this kind of presentation to people in the last 10 years, some people start to tell me, but why you speak to us here in Switzerland, in Europe, about making mass customization? Why you don't do it, tell to the Chinese to do it? So I start and ask a question to the Chinese manufacturer of shoes, that they produce, by the way, 80% of the 18 billion pair of shoes. And they said, but we sell everything. We don't have unsold shoes. Why? Because they produce for the big brand, okay, and chain of stores in Europe and in the United States. And they order a certain number of pair of shoes, like I said, in mass production, so approximately, and they don't care if they are not selling 20% of their product. Because they make so much margin. I'm becoming one of these activists. They make so much margin that they don't care. This is my first observation. The second one, to be a little bit more provocative, I will ask North Face, can I buy a jacket from you that fits me according to my dimension? And how many unsold jackets do you have?
I feel like the North Face is taking over this panel. Thank you. I don't think, yeah. To answer your first question, no, we cannot create a customized jacket, but I think you knew the answer to that already. To answer your second question, I don't know the number of unsold products that we have, but we do have unsold products because, unfortunately, as accurate as we try and make our forecasts, they're not always accurate. Sometimes they're underestimates, sometimes they're overestimates. We do many things with the unsold items. There's a lot of different, I'm not going to make it too long, but there's a lot of different things that you can do. You can find different sales channels to sell them. So you can do like through outlet stores or through distress sales in different types of retailer markets. Or what you can also do is take back those products that are not sold from your retailers, like from Intersport, from whoever it is, or also from worn out clothes that consumers are not wearing anymore, and give them a second life and resell them to a customer that actually wants to use them. And there we enter the whole circular economy world, which I'm not going to get into now because we don't have time, but yeah, a quick answer.
Thank you, Marta. I'm sorry the North Face is becoming the scapegoat of the, but let's move on eventually to the last question, one or two questions. We take them together and then we do a last round of replies.
Yeah, it's not about the North Face. I hear what you're saying about the important role that consumers play in pushing back and asking questions, but I just wonder, how can we trust brands when they are designed to make a profit and they are incentivized to tell us and to tailor messaging to a particular consumer? Where is the critical lens? Where does that come from?
So what I see, and again, it's because we at Qantas, we work with a lot of different brands, not only in the fashion and sporting goods, but also in beverage and in cosmetics. That's where brands are most looking now to is reporting. They need to report, and this reporting is science-based. Most of it is science-based. So they report to, there are voluntary reporting schemes like CDP, but there is, in Europe there is CSRD, which is upcoming in 2024. They need to report, and in Switzerland there is the TCFD. Swiss government decided that companies need to report to that. And to do that, they need to analyze their risk scenarios, their impact, and not only on carbon. So, of course, it is for an end consumer very difficult to see that. And I can say that also a lot of, especially luxury brands, they are not even communicated on it, but they are preparing for if there is an attack or whatever. And then on top of this reporting, a part of the Green Deal is also this anti-greenwashing law, who is now under voting, and where brands cannot communicate a message anymore if it's not backed up by science.
Maybe just to add on your point, I think one major thing I'm grateful for personally, not as a brand personally, is the European Union and how much they're pushing. So along all the things that she was just mentioning, all the different regulations that are upcoming. Also, one thing that I have putting a lot of faith into is the digital product passport. So that's really about how sustainability and transparency behind a product that you're buying is linked to digital technology and innovation, and how we can get consumers the transparent, proper information when they're buying a product. And the European Union is pushing for this, which is really pushing brands to take action.
Which is wonderful, but if I may, that's all coming from regulation. That's not coming from consumers.
Yeah, but
so it's not consumers who are, the brands aren't doing this, according to your answers, because they want to sell more. They're doing it because they have to.
To be more transparent.
Yeah.
No, also because we're going to sell more. Hopefully, we have data from our more. What we're doing also is in launching more sustainable product lines, if you want to call it. So products that have, for example, we launched a circular design collection, which is products designed according to circular design principles. We have been monitoring the sales trends of that as well, and we have been seeing a great consumer conversion rate from that. So, of course, we're looking at various things. Policy is one thing, because that's something you can't escape from, but consumer is ultimately who we're selling to. So that's the main thing that we are catering our marketing and our products towards. And we are seeing that consumers are more reactive to these types of messages and products. Also through selling used products, re-commerce, resale, repairing, all these things. There are things mainly the younger generation, but it's something that they're really buying into and that they're expecting now from the brands, and something that we are engaging in. So yeah, I would say both. We're listening to both.
My question is, like, for this regulation, these are like the UN, they're like recommendations, right? So I feel like different countries have different regulations and different limits that they follow, that they don't necessarily have to be followed by other countries. So I feel like countries for like production in a certain country like China would be different for productions for a different country. So do you think these companies have like the same type of regulations across all these countries of production, or do they just follow what is necessary for that country?
Very quick, then I'll pass it. So it's only me speaking. That's a good question. It's true, it's very scattered. What the European Union is trying to do is harmonize all of this. But to answer your question, we don't, like, to produce in Turkey, we don't just have to follow Turkish production standards. We also have to follow the standards that France has for importing products into France, the ones that Italy has, the one that the US has. So at least speaking for a global brand that's selling basically in every market in the world, we have to comply with every market regulation. The ones with the highest standards are the European Union countries, and yeah, so basically to sell in the market, you need to comply with the standards of the market you're selling in. So not just where you're producing, if that makes sense. I don't know if someone else has something.
Correct. You said it correct. I have nothing to add. No, I just wanted to add a little bit on the, but again, not to go too much into the detail on the upcoming label, to what you were saying, because that's really for consumers, and I think that's also why there's so much discussion about this, because in the beginning it's mainly looked at carbon impact and or at fossil-based materials, and there are let's say groups who didn't agree with that, and they also want to see, because it could have been seen as something negative against natural fibers. So there were activist groups who were against it, and this had an impact also on the decision-making of the development of this label, which is still under discussion, where they're under discussing now the impact of microbeads, of these plastic beads, and how that is also in the environment, and as I said before, also durability. So I think it's also good to have all these activists, and also on a consumer level, this impact on this kind of developments, which can also fake the, how to say, or give the consumer a wrong decision to buy something, like saying, okay, this is 100% synthetic, so it has a lower impact than, for example, a wool t-shirt. So that was the main discussion, and that's why the label is still not there, and it's still under discussion. So, but it's really for the end consumer, such kind of label, which already exists for the food and beverage industry.
So very last comment from the
yeah,
organizer.
I know we're running late, but I think I have an important question, because I see we have a range of panelists that come from different backgrounds, from large corporations to startups, right, and to mass customization, this new idea. And I saw that video and how powerful it was. Like, I got an emotional response from that video. And I thought, wow, a lot of money went into producing that video. And when I see people who are startups or pitching an idea, and I wonder if they had those resources, would they then be able to succeed? Like, so my question is, Claudio, Renata, like, if I was in an elevator with you and I asked you, and I could make a difference to the success of your idea, the success of your business, what is it that you guys need the most to make your idea successful? 40 seconds. You have 40 seconds. You're in an elevator.
I did not hear very well, so I don't know.
Leonardo, you want to?
No, it's just that there is some.
So, is this better? Okay. So what I would.
Elevator pitch.
Yeah, well, so I noticed that that was a very well-produced video. A lot of money went into producing it. But a lot of times when we have an idea, we don't have the resources to get that idea off the ground. And what I heard in your mass customization was a great idea. And what I heard with Renata about her mode of disclosure, which really suited the customers and not government regulation, that's a great idea. And I know that when you're in the startup phase, you're the most vulnerable. Like, how do we get your ideas to succeed? So I am the person in the elevator who can make it happen. What do you need to make your ideas succeed?
You want to start?
40 seconds.
I think the most important thing for any startup is to get the awareness of the product. If no one is going to use it eventually, it's not important how amazing the idea is. If people don't decide to join the community, to join this new lifestyle, it's all useless. It's not important how much budget I have. If people don't care about it, it will not happen. So it's all about how to create as much awareness as possible and to get the right people to join your product and to join the startup that you're talking about.
Well, yeah, if I am with somebody in an elevator, I look at her shoes, and then I ask, are you happy about the shoes that you have now? Have you been always happy with shoes that you purchase? If you were able to have shoes that are fitting you very well, with a good style, and only for you, would you buy it? Then I will see the answer.
Thank you.
And save the planet, of course. 20% of less energy.
So I guess we can go on with the discussion during the dinner and the after eventually. Thank you very much to the panelists. Since it was the last panel, thank you, all of you, for participating to this amazing day.